Hello Jeff, well, here's your radio thing, your flipping radio. As you can see, there's been some heat generated inside. That's probably from the neon lamp, but no real damage. Now, this is the motor unit, which I have managed to take off its mount, and as you can see, the little spindle down there that drives the clock isn't at the centre of the motor, so there must be a gear arrangement inside there. The only thing is that's completely flat, and there's no way of undoing it from the other side, I don't think. I'm not familiar with these, how they case these things. So, I don't know whether we can get in there, see what's happening, and if we do, whether we can do anything about it. So, the clock does flip. Oh, it did. Yeah, when it's manually operated, I can flip it. So the actual clock unit itself is alright. It's just that the motor's not turning it because the motor's not going round, because there's no life in it whatsoever.
Girls, skips on the board. Yes, which actor starred in
Totally.
The Da Vinci Code, which partly
Totally
was
jammed up.
Shoreham Airport. Thank you, Bob. You're a kind man. Number 7, just as easy.
That sounds good, doesn't it?
Okay, well, as you're a sportsman,
It does sound good.
reporter, it's only fair that I put in the sports question. So,
This is now where I mess things up totally. By hacking into this thing, see what's going on. Would need to be replaced, this unit, and I don't think that's very likely, but I will have a look and see whether such a thing is available. At least we've got the details. I guess the 1976 is the manufacturing year. All seems a long time ago. Yeah, it's not 1976, it's 1676, so it's even older than I thought. Anyway, I'll take the number and give it a go. Highly unlikely, but worth a try. Perhaps they turn up on eBay all the time. Perhaps not. The other side of that brass disc, in fact you can see it in the middle, is a spindle, and that goes through. That goes through. You can see down there. Whoops. You can see down there the bearing the other side, and this can is what turns, and the spindle is fixed, goes through and whizzes around because there's a ferrite band on the inside of this can, and there's the electromagnets inside, something like that, I don't know. Anyway, I've been fiddling with it. It was completely stopped, but unlike some other type of motors, it doesn't sort of jitter and then burn up if it gets jammed, that sort of thing. It just doesn't go. And now what's been suggested online, in fact what's been shown, is with very similar motors to this, the same make, is that you can take this spinning part off and then get to the whole thing and clean it with spirit and whatnot. Well, this one isn't going to come off, I don't think, because the shaft, as we saw, doesn't come straight through the other end and then onto some external gears. The gear that's attached to the motor, as it were, is that little tiny white one there, off to one side, and that's because there's a whole gear train inside here, as well as the sort of motor, and it's an integral unit. So the best I can do is something that someone else has done, having the same problem, which is to try to get a little lubricant into both ends of the spindle and hope it goes in. I might use this stuff to start with, plus gas, which is very good at just getting into places. It's a release. It's a superb material, but whether it will do this job I don't know. Anyway, before I do anything, I'm actually going to try to put the mains on again, because I did see some sign of life when I did that just now. So I'll just switch on and we'll see what happens, if anything. Yes. So it's going around. For the first time for a long time, possibly 30 years, or who knows. Now, to find out if the gears are okay, we need to see if that little white gear is going around. It's going to be very, very slow. So I'm going to have to carefully check that in a minute. Certainly before trying to reassemble anything, because if that isn't going around, nothing's going to happen in terms of making the clock go, which would be a bit sad because it means the gears are gone and there's no way of doing anything. Well, it's going round, and when I turn off, usually it starts up on its own with a bit of reluctance. The only way to clean it, you can't get in there because there's a gear train, so you can't take it apart. There's an internal gear train in the case. So the only way to clean it will be to cut that cable tie there, so I can take the motor out onto the side and dunk the whole thing in something like white spirit, no, alcohol, to try and clean the gunkiness, because I think that's a problem. Or we can put it back together and keep our fingers crossed. I'm not sure which yet, but I'll have a think tonight. Now the motor hasn't been on all day since yesterday, so I'm going to switch on the mains. Now if it comes on when I switch on, I might just take a chance, put everything back together, hope it keeps going. If it doesn't come on, I'm going to try and wiggle the whole thing, the whole radio, just twist it. If that starts it, then it's also an option to put everything back together, knowing that if it doesn't start, maybe just give it a bit of a kick start. I think this is a synchronized motor AC. Once it's going at the right speed. So it's just a question of whether it will start. And also, when you're using this radio, you're not going to unplug it necessarily. It's going to be on, which means the motor's going to be turning 24 hours a day. So the only problem probably will come if you turn it off and turn it back on again and it doesn't start. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to turn it on. 3, 2, 1. Nothing. Okay, that's because I haven't got it I haven't got it plugged in. Hang on a sec. 3, 2, 1. Yes. A bit sluggish, but it started on its own. So do I take a chance, put it all back together, hope that still happens. Bearing in mind there'll be a load on it, although it's very highly geared, so I don't think the load will have much effect on whether or not the motor starts. Conundrum. Or do I fill the gear side of it with isopropyl alcohol? Guess I could always have a go with that another time if we put it back together and it doesn't work. There's always plan B.